In this video, I take you behind the scenes where I interview Hanna Freeman on the Rustic Songbird Podcast. And we talk about how the music industry is changing. And we talk about the importance of trusting God through the process and trusting Him with the details. I hope you enjoy this conversation, and I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel for more episodes like this coming every single week. I don't want you to miss anything, so hit that subscribe button and let's get started. Hey Hanna, how are you
Hey,
this morning?
Lydia. Oh my gosh, hey girl, how are you?
You have the biggest smile. That makes me so
Oh,
happy. So good to see
Lydia, it's so good to see you. I feel like it's been a hot minute. How are you?
you so long. Yeah, I'm doing all right. I am so glad to be talking to you. I think I hadn't seen you since one of the Brave Worship events like a year ago.
Yeah,
I think it's been a long.
yes, it's been a while. It's so good to see you.
Yeah, I saw that you co-wrote a song with Allison Clark that just came out. And
Yes,
but it sounds awesome. Great job.
thank
And
you so
congrats
much.
for having a song release too. That's exciting.
Thank you. I know it just like sort of just started happening, and I was like, Allison, yes, girl.
Had you guys been writing several times, or was that the first time you wrote together?
Allison and I have been writing for, gosh, I think a few years,
Okay.
actually.
So
Yeah.
you are,
So,
wow, that's so much fun.
yeah, it was
I love her
awesome.
style. Like anytime I hear her, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be fun because she's got
Oh,
such a cool style.
she has such a cool style. It's like, seriously, she's like country slash folk slash just her own Allison Clark.
Yes, it's always fun, like kind of funky. Like she's got some grit to her voice and
Oh,
some
yeah, she's got some
sass,
soul
like
too. Like,
this whole recipe of awesomeness.
yes. And so when she said she was going to release the song, I was like, yes, girl, I'm so excited. So it's been so fun.
That's so cool. Well, I'm excited for you.
Thank
I wanted to
you.
bring you on the podcast. I've been interviewing several ladies from Brave Worship and just sharing
Yes.
stories about worship leading and songwriting. And the show is for songwriters and musicians. So just like interviews with people that are in it, that are doing it, that can share encouragement with others, especially women who are leading worship and songwriting. And so I just wanted to have you on the show to share your
Yes.
story
I
and to
love
share.
that.
So
Thank you so much.
tell me a little bit about what you've been thinking, because I didn't have a specific topic for
Yeah.
our talk, but if there's something that's been like on your mind lately or something you've been writing about or experiencing, then maybe we could kind of guide the conversation in that direction.
Yeah, girl. Man, I just feel like, I feel like with COVID and just with everything going on in the world right now, it's just been this like pullback. Like, I feel like the Holy Spirit was like, hey, I'm going to remove all the busyness in your
Mhm.
life.
Yeah.
And I just want you to just sit with me and not try to figure everything out. And I feel like a lot of my friends that I've been talking to, it's just been really similar, right? Obviously, we went into this like place of just solitude,
Hmm.
and it's just been this place of rest and kind of like realigning my priorities. In the
Sure.
past like 2 years, I guess, so I've been working on this song. I've been working on this song idea for a couple years, and I love because Chrissy always teaches us, like, that Chrissy Nordoff, she does
Hmm.
the Brave. It's just for everyone listening. But she is such an incredible woman of God and teacher. But she taught us, and I know you've heard her say this, Lydia. But sometimes you have like a song just fall into your lap, right? And then other times you have the gems, and you have to like really just work at those, and they're just little diamonds. And then you have to kind of, I forget how she words it, but you just kind of have to work at those songs. And like sometimes you can't force a song, you just have to really just follow the Lord's leading. And like bringing different songs into the writing room, don't be offended if someone isn't like want to do that song that you brought. Like, okay, then move on. Like, then obviously that's just not the song for those people, and that God has something else for that group. And you just have to like really lean in and listen. So with this song idea is this God's in the details, and like that's been what God's really been speaking to me lately.
So he's been bringing that song back to your mind, like something that you've been working on for a while.
Yes.
But you feel like it's time for that song now. Like
it's like starting to, yes, like I feel like it's starting to come to surface. Like I had this idea, and I tried to the songwriting. I don't know if you've ever done Chrissy's songwriting quiz. What are you? Have you done it, like melody, lyric?
Yeah, I did the personality test, and I was a content writer, which totally makes sense for me because I'm all about the message of the song, what the song's saying, make sure that everything connects with the title. And so it's so funny to me because I went through the test and I was like, yep, that's me to a T. I'm a content writer.
I love
What about you?
writing with content writers because they keep me focused. So I am melody.
Ooh, I like it. So we write together. That would be a really good combination.
We 100% need to write for sure. Let's do it. But yeah, so I've just been trying to like press out this song with a melody, and nothing feels right. But I sat down the other day and I was like, this is it. So I've got my gym, and we're just gonna start. Who knows, maybe it'll be 6 months, maybe it'll be 2 weeks, or maybe it'll be 3 years. But I think you just have to learn not to push it too hard. I mean, push it, don't let it like sit too like, but lean in and pick it up when you feel led.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because the lifespan of a song can go like so long. You might have an idea and then come back to that idea, and then it turns out to be something else.
Yeah.
Or you might write the song and it's done in 10 minutes. So
like
really is no bar for like how fast you can write a song, because sometimes it needs that space to think about, over to look at it with fresh eyes, to bring it to a co-write. So it depends on the song, but I love how you said like in the time of solitude, and when you had this space all of a sudden after being so busy, it's like God brought that back to your mind of like, now's the time to work on this song.
Yeah, it's funny how God does that. But yeah, and it's just like you have to remove the busyness, like, and I'm such like a people person, and I'm like, yes, everybody, let's be friends. And that's good, and it's good and everything, but I just started just getting too busy, and I was like, what are my priorities? And just kind of like remove the clutter. So
yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm there with you totally. I've been thinking the same thing of like, what's the most important things, what's essential, and what to keep happening in my life as we move back into in-person things, like how busy do I want to be? So what's that been like for you?
So yeah, it's funny you asked that, because this is the first week that I've kind of gone back in, and I was like, whoa, yeah, maybe we should chill out. Because I had something planned with friends like almost every night, which was so fun, and it's so good to see my friends, but I'm like literally dead to the world. I don't know if you ever listened to Annie F. Downs' podcast, but so she's an Enneagram 7 and I'm an Enneagram 7. And I heard her say once, she was like, I knew I was a 7 when I hung out with a bunch of people. And the next morning, I felt dead to the world. Like you feel like you had a hangover, but you weren't
like a
drunk,
friend hangover.
Like a friend hangover. Because the 7s go to that 5 in health, and the 5s need that like introverted like side. And so even though I love it, it's just tiring. So it's just going into next week trying to be intentional about like organizing and what's important, and mapping out co-writes and songwriting and stuff like that.
So you're making more of a priority for music and like trying to move forward with writing songs, putting stuff out there.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yes.
So what does that look like for you? Are you doing, like you're trying to do regular co-writes, or you write with the same people, trying to write with different people?
Yeah. I
Seem like,
think yeah, I think there was a season at the beginning, like in my co-write journey, like a couple years ago, where I was trying to write with new people all the time, which was really good. But now I feel like I found like people that I really jive with, and I'm always looking for new people, right? Like
yeah.
always. But right now I think I've got like that core group, and there's a lot of girls from Brave that are a part of that, and just really I think now I'm trying to brainstorm, and Rachel Thomas is always, she is one of my dearest friends, and she's always encouraging me.
Amazing.
She's
Yeah.
got a blog, Create More, Care Less, and she's always just like, Hannah, like we are called to create, and you don't need to care what other people think. Like, and Christy's always like, you don't know what your song, like, that when you sit down at the piano by yourself and you just play, you don't know what you're speaking out in the spirit, and you don't know what realms you're declaring and interceding for, and have power and authority over just by yourself. And so I think, again, it's being that, like, leaning into this Holy Spirit and being like, okay, this I need to share, and this was just for me, and just really, but then also being bold and not caring and being obedient when God says, hey, post
Not caring
this.
what the world thinks, but listening to what the Lord says.
Yes.
And what to you. Yeah, I think as writers, we have a special responsibility of like hearing what the Lord's speaking and then being the messenger of it, and writing our songs, singing it in our songs, and then as worship leaders, if we're leading in a congregation, like we have that responsibility of like asking the Lord what he wants to say, listening to what he has to say, and then sharing that. It's kind of like the game of time. You don't want the message
say that
to get
again.
lost.
Say that again, how you said you asked.
Yeah, you ask the Lord for what he wants you to say, whether it's in a songwriting or if you're leading a congregation. I think it's really similar. Asking the Lord what he wants to say, listening to what the Lord has to say, and then sharing that message with other people, like being that message for him to flow through you. And you don't want to get the message mixed up. You don't want to get it muddled with like your own thoughts, because his thoughts are higher, right? So we have to listen and then speak. And so I think songwriters have a unique perspective of listening, and then also the responsibility of sharing it with people. And like you said, that message that God is in the details, that's something he spoke to your heart a while ago and then brings it back and reminds you. And I think when we hear that message of a song over and over, that's a sign that we need to write that song or like finish that song, or it's like, this is still important, don't forget this idea. And so I've seen that as well. I've had an idea, I'm like, oh, that's a good idea, and then I go about whatever I'm doing, and then it comes back and I'm like, oh yeah, I need to write that, and then I need to write it down just to get it out of my brain, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I think there's a lot of purpose in that. It's just like a little tap on the shoulder, like, don't forget, write this song. Maybe normal people that aren't songwriters wouldn't get that. I don't know. But as songwriters, like, I'm constantly thinking of things in song ideas.
Well, I think you're just always like, I think songwriters are like just kind of dwell in that creative space. And so you're like driving down the road, you see, and you like see a billboard or like, I don't know, a bumper sticker, and you're just kind of always like mulling that over. And I think it's like just being like, you have to take up and pick that calling up and be like, okay, I'm going to write this down in this moment when I had this thought, or I'm going to record this voice memo. And I think when you're a first songwriter, like, feels so silly, like, like in your voice memo, but you have to know, like, this might stir something else. Like, it may not even be the main idea, but like, God is such a detailed God that there's always intricate pieces to his story and to our story. And we may not understand this one small thing he's asking us to do, but in light of the big picture that he sees, we don't ever, like, we prophesy in part, and yes, we don't always, we see the big picture and we want to go up to the heavens, right? And we want to see that perspective, but we have to trust that there's always a bigger story and a bigger thing that God's doing that we just want to be a part of and be obedient, and have to know that he sees more than us always.
Yes,
So
and I love that you said that. That's so encouraging to me as well, because I like to know the details and I like to know what's going on and why it's happening.
yes.
And I even had a phone call with my mom the other day that I was like, I feel like I don't have a clear picture of the future, and I always have like looked forward to things. So I was like, what are we looking forward to? Because
Wow.
the future seems uncertain. You're like, okay, I guess there's a future, but if I don't see it, like, it's hard to think about more than where we're at right now. And so, like, there is power in like being present, but I think looking forward, it's important to listen to the Lord and see what he has for us. So I do think like
Right.
this time of solitude and like being quarantined and like being away from people and like reset our priorities and what's most important, what we want to be like moving forward. Like, this is the time to really check ourselves and to figure out like, how busy do I want to be moving forward,
Right.
and what does the Lord have for me? Do I need to make changes? And so it's kind of like we're being forced into change because it's going to be different, right? And change is
Right.
never comfortable. And so I
That's so
think
good. Change is never comfortable.
no, it isn't. And so most people, wish that on yourself, but if you're finding yourself in that place, then you have to move forward somehow.
Right.
So I'm learning dependence on God in a totally new level.
Yeah.
That for like, I had ideas of what I thought the future looked like, and now those things are kind of in question. It's like, well, is that what the Lord wants for me, or does he have something better? Like, maybe
Yeah.
there's something else that we have
Right.
no idea.
Right. Well, he gives us more than we can imagine, more than we can ever think up or dream of, right? So, and yes, there's that space of us dreaming with the Holy Spirit. And I think that's a place that God longs for us to be. But there's this part of surrender that's like, God, you see bigger, and here's everything. Here's my ideas. Here's what I think. And then, as we lean in and listen, and trust that God is going to give us something better, maybe, and I feel like there's been so many of my friends in this time where it just feels like a divine setup. Like, yes, this has been such a hard time. Like, this has been a crazy time in our world, and like such a mourning time. And I think we're all mourning together for all these losses. And like, there's a space for that, like a really, really big space for that. Like, it's horrible. But because we've all been quarantined, we've been in this thought of just really like, check yourself.
I
And
feel like timeout. It's like, you're in timeout. Think about what you did.
yeah.
How are you going to do differently next time?
Yeah. And it's like, I feel like so many of my friends have like launched businesses and been like, wait, or maybe thought like, wait, this isn't a good idea. And like, but like, I have so many friends who it's like, this feels like a divine setup, like a rewrite. Like, I don't know. It just, it's like a second chance to do something, something maybe better, more than you can have imagined. And yes, you have to lay stuff down. You had to lay your schedules down. You had to lay your work life down. You had to weigh your friends down. You had to lay all of that down. But like, how like God, because we have to get away from all that. Like, I was reading in the Word this morning, like, Jesus got away to the garden to pray, right? And like, he was very specific when he healed certain people, like from death to life miracles. He only chose certain people to be in the room with him, right? And like, certain times where he was alone to pray, he only called certain disciples in there. You have to be really, really careful about who's like in your holy of holies space. Like, so anyways.
Yeah, it's so important. And like you said, you're a friend person. You love to hang out with people. And so like, your influences are really important right now.
Right.
especially moving forward, of just thinking, who do I want to be around? Who lifts me up? Who
Yeah,
speaks truth into my life? Who can I call and they're going to give me good news? Who am I going to
that's
call?
good.
They're going to give me good advice. And right now is like a bridge time. I think being that bridge of from where we were to where we're going to be. And I heard a really good analogy about being a bridge, and it said, let's see, what was it? You can't bring your past with you. There's not enough room. And if you're going across this bridge and you're moving forward, you have to leave the baggage behind.
That's so good, right?
And so you're saying, like, check yourself, check, what you're going to be like moving forward. And as you're a bridge into what is possible and to what is happening in the future, you can't bring all those things with you. So we're really having to clean house, like what's in your heart, and leave the garbage, like leave the baggage, leave the hurt, leave the all the things that were holding you back, all the doubts, all the insecurities, and like just move forward in faith and trusting the Lord. And that was such an amazing analogy to me. Like, we can't be what we were before. There's no going back to that. So there's only moving forward. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Like you said, we're in like a kind of a grieving process of what has been lost, but also we can be optimistic because when we're in the Lord's kingdom, we've already won. And if we're following him, he's going to guide us into what's next, even when we can't see it yet.
Right. That's really good. That's really good. And that's really good. I love that analogy of the bridge. I feel like there's a song in that, girl.
Yeah, there's probably a ton of songs. So anyone listening, like, write that song. Right?
Yes.
Because that idea could be taken a ton of different ways in lots of different songs.
Yeah.
And hearing that bridge analogy in a lot of different ways. And so I think that's just a great picture for what is happening right now. Like, we're going across the bridge. And so I think that's really encouraging for us right now. Like, leave behind what's not going to serve you moving forward.
Yeah, that's really good. I also think, like, who are you a bridge for? Like, if we're all these bridges into this next season and you want to bring the right people with you, like really taking into account of like, who are you going to be, like, because a bridge, like, right, without bridges, we just fall into the ocean. Like, we're all just driving across this bridge, and then and like, I just think, who are you going to be that bridge with you and bring with you, and let your words encourage them, and just be a listening ear.
And that makes me think of another story. I'll share this with you too. We had a sermon at church just this past Sunday, and the pastor was talking about passing the baton from Moses to Joshua. And in the Old Testament, in Moses' time, God parted the Red Sea and they walked across on dry land. But when it was Joshua's turn to lead, Moses had died, and that was in the past. And when they got to the Jordan River to cross into the Promised Land, God did intervene and he did keep his promise, but he stopped the water upstream. And like, if you go into the history of like the Jordan River, it was during the time of the flooding season. So it was like really, really rushing. God stopped the water upstream, and they still had to walk through some water. It wasn't on dry land. It was different than Moses. It was in their time. God did keep his promise, but it looked different.
Right.
That time. They had to still have faith to walk through the water. It just wasn't as rushing as it would be, because he had stopped it upstream. And so they still had to step out in faith. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. Like, if we're expecting God to do the same thing in the same way, we might miss what he's actually doing right now.
Like, I think it's going to look similar, right? Like, all of God's miracles, it's going to look similar.
He's still the same.
He's still the same. And it's like, well, that was God. That's undeniable. That was God. That's undeniable. But they're all going to be different because God's always doing a new thing, right? He's always doing a new thing.
He's a creative God.
Yes. And I just think, I was talking to someone and they were saying, when I get into the presence of God, I try to, like, she was talking about where this experience where she first felt the Holy Spirit. And she's like, when I get into the presence of God, I always try to recreate that time. And I thought, well, I love that you had such a powerful encounter, but God is always doing something new. And I think we try to take it on ourselves to create this space and this time. And I think there's a calling in that as worship leaders, right, to create the posture, but it's on God to do the miracle. Like, it's on God. Like it says, I think in First Corinthians, like we plant seeds, but God's the one who causes the growth. God's the one who does the miracle, right? God's the one who parts the sea, and we have to trust that it's going to be something new, and it's going to be so intricate. Like, God is so in the details. You're going to be able to look back and be like, whoa, 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 I saw you there, I saw you there, and I saw you there. But it's never going to look the same because God is awesome. And it's never going to look exactly the same. Yeah.
I love that. And as a creative person, just to know that, God's going to be the same. He's consistent. His character is the same.
Right.
We can trust him, and that he's also creative, and he has lots more ideas than we do. And so he gives us like a snapshot, or he gives us a piece or like a glance at what is, way beyond our capacity to even understand. And so just to be a part of what he's doing is so exciting.
Yeah, it just takes this like relief off of you to know, like, okay, it's God who does it. Like, I think we want to be control freaks and like, has to be exactly like this. And God's like, let me do something new.
Yeah, and he shows us that he's in control.
Yes.
And I think in a time of uncertainty, when we're not sure of what the future is going to look like moving forward, I think it's really good for us to remember that he's always been in control. He's always going to be in control, and we're just more aware of that now than ever before.
Girl, don't even get me started on that topic of remembrance. Help me, Jesus. That's so good. We have to remember. So I just wrote a song called Help Us Remember. And like, it's just, I don't have it released anywhere or anything. I just actually posted it on my Instagram story, but by the time this is out, it'll be gone. But it's, but yeah, it's like, there's so much power in remembrance. There's so much power in communion, and that act of remembering what God did in your life and the times he showed up.
Yeah, and I think that is really helpful. If anyone's listening and they're feeling like confused about what's going on or moving forward, if they're feeling unsure about life and like questioning everything, I mean, in a way it's good to question everything, and in a way it's really hard because then you're not sure what to believe. You can believe what the Lord says because he has been consistent, and he's not going to contradict himself. The Holy Spirit doesn't contradict, and so that's something we can trust. And then, like we said, like, don't bring your past with you, don't let your past hold you back, but at the same time we can learn from our past and what the Lord has done. It gives us so many things to look back and say, you know what, God was faithful here in my life, he was faithful here, he was faithful here, and he will continue to be faithful. And so for anyone listening, I do want to encourage people that we can look at what God's already done and use that as our assurance moving forward.
Yes. Like, just look back. I just would challenge anyone listening just to ask God, like, God, show me where you were in the details. Like, show me something, like, journal with the Lord and just ask him to bring something to your mind where you knew, like, wow, that couldn't have been an act of anything but the divine. Like, I couldn't have done this for myself. Like, that was a setup. And just see what God brings to your mind.
That is so good. I love that encouragement. Well, share how people can get connected with you, hear your new music coming out, and see what you're up to.
Yes. Well, so the only song I have out right now is What Day, and that is going to be found on AllisonClarkMusic.com. She's a really good friend of mine. And yeah, AllisonClarkMusic.com. You can go and look, or you can look up Allison Clark. I know my name's on there, so you might be able to look up Hanna Freeman, but I actually don't think if that will pop up because it's her artist page. So, but that's a song that we wrote together called What Day, so you can look her up. And Clark is Clarke, and Allison has 2 L's. So
awesome. It's really exciting that you guys released a song that you co-wrote together, and it's
super excited.
under Allison's name. But also share your Instagram, because you talked about posting some of your music on your Instagram. So what's your
so I'll post music on there sometimes, and my handle is Hanna HANNA.Noel21.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing some of your story and some of your thoughts on what's going on in the world, and like how you're navigating that and songwriting moving forward. I think it's just really important to have these conversations and also encourage each other. Like, I think that the musicians and the songwriters are so needed right now. We need to be writing these songs and sharing it with the world, sharing hope moving forward. So you're doing that. Thank you so much for what you're doing, and thanks for being on the show to share about it.
Thanks, Lydia. It was so much fun. Thanks for having me. I had so much fun talking to you.
I appreciate you watching this interview. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to this channel for more interviews like this with people in the music industry coming soon. Leave a comment and let me know what your questions are and what topics you'd like to see more of on the show, and I'll catch you in the next one.